actually, I was going to ask that you do that. And I'm also thinking when we get to, it doesn't matter about the introduction, but when we get to the real content, it'd be great if somebody might take some notes, or otherwise take the recording afterwards. I think we're going to need to be able to have a look back at it, at what's come out of it. Is there somebody who would do that?
And we can transcribe it too. We can just plug
Oh,
it
okay,
in.
yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, so we've got a group of what I'll judge as next generation leaders here on the call, who are in conversation and exploration with the energy and consciousness of money, listening deeply to how money wants to create with us, exploring where our human systems are in alignment and out of alignment with the consciousness of money, and how the consciousness of money wants to support the shift in consciousness that's occurring on a planetary scale right now. So we've got a collective here of people who I experience as bringing the very best of what we have in every moment in service of collective flourishing, and creating the most good for the most number of people. So I feel really honored to have invited this group together, and we're exploring unconventional and post-conventional ways of receiving guidance and insight and wisdom for how to best relate with what's happening right now. And as I mentioned, invited Aviv in here, as he's really been someone who I've experienced as holding space for an intergenerational exploration for how can we best support the emerging generation and maybe the generations that be, the powers that be, in collaborating to support thriving for now and for generations to come. So yeah, that's me setting context. I'd love to pass it over to you, Sarah, and see if you want to color in more or rewrite
a little bit. I'll explain what I was looking for when we came up with this idea. And just in the context of what you said, what I have become aware of for me is, having spent many years working with energy and learning to listen, which really started through the book. Well, a couple of years ago, before that, I started to receive some guidance and be able to ask questions, whereas before that was not perhaps a very easy thing to do. And what I'm really engaged with now is, how do we turn that into something that's real? Because I've met a lot of people who've experienced a lot of guidance but haven't made anything real with it because they try it and it's too difficult. And it's the guidance experience is more fun than the reality experience. It can feel very bruising sometimes to work in today's environment and try to create new systems, because you're always on the cutting edge. People always want to they're always protecting their own reputation. And so you're always the dangerous one. You're always the one who's challenging, and you're always the one who's most likely, people kind of love it, but they don't always want to be associated. And at the same time, everybody knows that we need to be doing we need to build the new systems. I'm actually just reading a book at the moment that some of you might have come across, called Stolen Focus by Johann. And what he always comes to, he wrote a very good book about depression a few years ago. He always comes to the fact that we can't make everything about the individual. We actually have to look at the systems as well and make better systems. And so, because you're, I think, entrepreneurial and entrepreneurs here, that really is what you're about at some level, contributing to. And the system, the way that I'm doing that is through the business LoveTO, which I think probably most people here are familiar with. I recognize most faces, but fundamentally, to give it in a nutshell, it's a way of bringing large scale capital to the grassroots people who perform the activities that make life better and that are fundamentally valuable for life. So the people who regenerate land, protect nature, the people who take care of their health and well-being, which has a ripple effect on everybody around them and has value for the entire nation they live in, as well as the places they work and their families and their communities, and other activities that are currently not valued in our mainstream system, but are powerfully valuable and actually need to be valued because they're valuable for life. So we talk about bringing capital to life, bringing this vast amount of stored wealth to the things that make life work. And as a part of that, my role in LoveTO, apart from being the co-founder of it, which means I'm sort of across all of it, is to share the spirit of LoveTO throughout the entire ecosystem. And that's an ecosystem that I expect within a few years will have many millions of people in it in different capacities. And there'll be many people, many entrepreneurial people. There'll be a lot of business opportunity that will arise around LoveTO as we create a better system for money. So over time, my expectation is that it will create a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. And what I'm looking at now is how do we support people really at the level of their consciousness. And for me, consciousness is really where you make decisions that influence your actions. So they turn into your reality. It's not your awareness. It's not what you're aware of. It's what you actually decide that shifts reality. So consciousness is really important. How do we create systems that support all of those people in that ecosystem and potentially people beyond that ecosystem to work in what I think of as the LoveTO way? So to work in this new paradigm way and to operate that way. So it's kind of a human operating system for people doing what they love to do to contribute to the world and being valued for that, which means money. And for shifting the weight of capital into that kind of very alive environment. So as I started to think about that, and my business partner and I were looking at who are the people who are going to be working for LoveTO, and this was definitely in a guidance context, and I experienced this army of young people, those are the words that came to me, who would really make up the energy and the drive of the whole system. And for a while, it's been on my mind that the way we do things and the way I teach things and share stuff and help people to develop their consciousness, expand their consciousness, needs to be, we need to start gearing ourselves much more towards younger generations for many reasons, which I don't think are important now. And so Boris and I were chatting about this, and I said, I just need to listen to some people talking. I have a bunch of questions, and you might have some questions too, Forrest, to learn about, what it is that you're trying to do, what it is that you're trying to get done in your business and in your vision. What are the things that work easily already, and what are the things that are really challenging around this transformation, this shift that's happening? And what works for you and doesn't work for you in terms of ways of learning and ways of expanding from where you are, especially how do you engage with what you don't know? Like if you know that you don't know something and there's a book for it, that's easy, but how do you stretch beyond that? Because books often just give you a whole lot of knowledge, but they don't give you the experience. So, and how do we build systems that work for you, that enable you to become the successful entrepreneurs that you choose to be? Because if you don't work as a person, as a human being, your business won't work. And in the new paradigm, that's way more important. In the past, we've had deeply dysfunctional people leading huge corporations with no integrity whatsoever. But integrity is really the key word, I would say, of everything that we're doing in this new way. That means we need to have integrity within ourselves or be on that path. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be on that path. So I think that's enough from there. I have some questions. I don't know whether, I'm just thinking that we just need to listen, Forrest, and pop questions in wherever we feel. Does that work for you?
It works for me. The one more bit
Hold on, I'm not hearing you for some reason.
Is anyone hearing me?
Oh, now we're hearing you.
Yeah, okay, beautiful. I want to ground your work one step more concretely. I know we respond really well to things really landing, but my understanding, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, is that LoveTO is supporting a collective of hundreds of regenerative farms in Australia and eventually on the planet.
25 at the moment. It'll be 2,500 next year, and it'll be many thousands the following year.
Beautiful. And you all are raising 750 million Aussie dollars in options?
985. We've issued $985 million worth of options to our producers and the business, and probably around half of those will be for sale over the next 6 to 9 months. So yeah, we're in the process now of selling options, which are a financial product. Yeah.
And explicitly what you all have done is look at the benefit that these regenerative farms have created over the last 3 decades, and actually created meta models where you have created metrics for valuing the ecological benefit that these farms are creating.
We actually value the work that the human beings do to create that ecological improvement.
Beautiful.
We value the people, and we measure the improvement.
Okay. Valuing people, measuring improvement, and then creating a financial product from valuing.
So I'll give you the 3-stage process, really
Maybe
simple.
I shouldn't do this. Maybe you should do this.
Well, you're telling me what you need to know. So there's tremendous amount of value that is being created at the moment by farmers who regenerate their land at the same time, which has not been valued, is currently not valued. So what we do is we measure the improvement they've made. That includes protection and conservation. We measure that, we put a value on the work that those farmers have done to produce that improvement or that conservation. We then equitize that. So we turn that into financial products, which basically work for the financial markets. We're really adding value. Their raw product is ecological improvement. We package it, just like packaging anything else, so that it meets the requirements of the market. And then we sell it in the financial markets, which are fundamentally the biggest markets in the world. So we just kind of take the farmers directly to the market so that they can sell this additional product, which is ecological improvement.
Thanks, Sarah.
Oh, I can't hear you again. Maybe everyone else can.
Can you all hear me? Yeah?
Now I can.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, that was super helpful. I want to make sure people know we're not just talking about ideas here, that you all are really doing things in the world.
We're doing it. We've already sold some, and I'm hot on selling more. So that's my work.
So is there an initial question that comes to you that you want to put into the group?
Yeah, I'll tell you the general drift of questions that I noted down, and then if some people might have better questions. But my general feeling was to get a little bit of an understanding of what you're trying to get done. So what I mean by that is, like, what's the change that you are creating through your business or wanting to create through your business? What are the particular challenges that arise from doing that in a new way rather than just, fitting in with the old way? A little bit about how you try to solve that at the moment and what works and what doesn't work, so that we can kind of try to find out where you're already where you're solving things and where you're not solving things, because it's where you're not solving things and where you're lacking the solutions you need is where we really need to look. And as I listen, I'm wanting to get an idea of how you engage with learning of any kind, because this is partly learning, with community, like what kind of environments support you to become a better person, a better operating person, stronger, more capable, more capacity, more love, more of all the qualities that we need to be able to work this way. What do you need in order to be able to become the entrepreneur and the human being that is in your vision and your dream? So, Forrest, you'll know this already, but I think it would be worth it for all of us just to hear. Perhaps you could each say briefly, this is very good practice. I think of it as what you're trying to get done. Like, what's the change that you're intending to make through your business? Forrest, you better just pick people or manage this bit.
Yeah, well, Shelby, I don't know if you're available, but my attention comes to you first. So I'll see if that's possible, and if not, yeah.
Hey.
Hey, Shelby.
Hey.
Can you tell us about no, it's all good, yeah.
Been eating. So I'm a little confused actually about what the question is. So the question is, what change am I trying to create through my business?
Yeah.
So can I
Yes.
just tell you about my business, and we can go from there?
Yes, I think the point is to understand what's your business, because a business isn't there. A business is fundamentally there to make a change in the world of some sort, to make a change for people.
Mhm.
So it's just really to focus on, it's like what you're actually trying to get done here. Sometimes business, when we think about business, we're thinking just all about ourselves, but it's actually really that links into the purpose of the business, the intention. So yeah, just tell me briefly.
Great. I think I understand what you're trying to ask, but feel
I'm
free
obviously
to
not asking it very well, but
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So I'm building a startup, a behavioral mental health tech startup. So what we're doing is building an online intensive outpatient program for teenagers. So I think the company itself is really focused on transforming mental health care, specifically behavioral mental health care. And there's a lot of different levels to how we're doing that, specifically just around data and security management for clinical mental health records, which I'm guessing we don't want to get too in the weeds with. As far as how we're raising money, what's been really interesting for me has been diving into dynamic equity model systems such as Slicing Pie, and then we're using WeFunder as a kind of family friends, again, another kind of dynamic equity sharing model, and that's been really, really fun and exciting, since laws in the US have changed around people being able to invest. So that's great. The other, kind of big financial system we're navigating and learning to navigate is insurance. So insurance, healthcare insurance systems in the US are pretty complex and
yes.
confusing. And they're really different state to state and diagnosis from diagnosis. So I think there's, again, a lot of stuff kind of in the weeds there of how we're making steps towards shifting those larger systems. But again, I don't know. So how is that? How is that?
That's great. That's
Great.
great. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. And then you had another question about how we
Let's just let's do this first question here from several people first of all, I think, and then we'll come around the next question. That would be easier.
Great.
Thanks, Shelby. Appreciate you. Babo, I'm coming to you, man. You want to tell us about your business and the impact you all are intending to have on the world and
I
on
think
your
we might have
clients?
missed the name of who you're calling on.
Bob Perna.
Yes, thank you, Forrest. First of all, Sarah, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I just started your book last week and I'm loving it, and it's hitting me like at the perfect time in my life for this.
Great.
So thank you for that. Okay, so I'll start with the change that I'm trying to create in the world before I put a label on what it is that I'm doing right now. And really what we're up to, my wife and I, with our business Root Function, is, on my end of it at least, trying to reconnect people with their bodies, create an environment where people feel safe and strong and confident in their bodies, to help them expand their possibilities in life, ultimately. I've been playing around with calling myself a possibility engineer for people, because like human biomechanics specialist feels kind of narrow and limiting in its scope. Working with people in improving their biomechanics is kind of the main focus of what I'm doing right now. The medium term kind of like expansion for that is incorporating more modalities like somatic experiencing, shadow work, bringing astrology into it as well. And yeah, I feel like right now I'm in an amazing growth spot and point of expansion. We've been really growing the business slowly and intentionally, and have had a lot of resources that we're really grateful that we've been able to do that. And what I'm finding for me personally right now, the key to growth and unlocking all of that has just been doing my own shadow work. So like, I'm really excited, excuse me, I'm really excited for the next 12 months to be working with Forrest and Kim Barta and diving into that more, because what I'm finding underneath isn't just this like wellspring of creativity, but also like that abundance and that joy that is connected with that energy of money that you're channeling in the book as well. So like, I feel like I'm kind of just like, not that I'm just along for the ride, but I'm like strapped in and I'm like operating a rocket ship right now and I'm like just ready to take off with my business. So that's where I'm at right now.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Landon, I feel like you're a perfect follow-up on that. Would you be open to going next?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Sarah. Hey, Bob and Forrest and everybody. So it's actually pretty similar to what Bob's doing, because I'm a chiropractor by trade, and then Bob's wife is also a chiropractor that I went to school with. And in chiropractic, there's this understanding that life force is emerging through us through innate intelligence, and that innate intelligence heals our body and knows much deeper levels of healing and awareness and understanding that our conscious mind is unable to process at all times. And so what I try to do is I try to bridge the gap between chiropractic and personal training or functional movement, because right now, in order for people to get a deeper connection with that innate intelligence, they must go to a chiropractor, and there's this mediator between yourself and this innate intelligence. And with the biomechanics training and what we're kind of calling like a kinesthetic discovery, is that there's a bridge between yourself and that innate intelligence that would actually, take the chiropractor out of this like gatekeeper position, more into this like facilitator position, and so I'm trying to teach people how to move in ways that would basically heal their body and their chiropractors would love. So that's the goal that I'm trying to do. That's what I'm
kind of like a bridge between the person and their chiropractor to make the chiropractor more effective.
It would make the chiropractor more effective, and it would give that person such a deep sense of confidence, and not like postural confidence, but health and body confidence that you can only get from it emerging internally. That there's a certain level of confidence that you get with the right chiropractic adjustment, but there's an even deeper level of confidence that you get when there's no medium between that. It's actually coming from you. So it's like innate intelligence, your innate intelligence is using its own innate intelligence to heal itself, rather than the chiropractor unlocking that innate intelligence. And I think that if the chiropractor is truly centered in a heart-centered position, they're absolutely going to love that. And if they're not, then they might not be so happy about that. But
Or they might not notice.
Yeah. But that's ultimately my goal, because that's what I strive for myself and for my family and for my friends. And so, in order to maintain integrity, that's what I would like for everybody else as well.
Cool. Thank you.
I just want to highlight this because there's a big shift I'm experiencing. At least I project it onto my generation. If it's a resonant projection, maybe it's helpful. But it seems that we're all, in the way that people are shifting from having a preacher in between them and God, there's also a shifting to taking both our power and responsibility back in the domain of well-being.
It's
So
not
we
only your
have-
generation.
Yeah,
That's
beautiful, cool. So I just
definitely,
want to
yeah.
highlight that Landon
Good to
seems
see
to
it.
be really tuned into how do we empower people to be able to have their own relationship with the innate capacity to heal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a very central theme in terms of new approaches to any of this stuff, is that it's always about empowering people to have that direct experience rather than, yeah.
And we have an emerging probability that every human being will be their own bank as well. So taking our power and responsibility back in the financial well-being arena as well.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Aiko, I'm looking to you. Would you like to go next? Tell us about the impact that you're feeling is having on the world. That didn't come out right, but the impact your work's having on the world. Money, Aiko. I love it.
Or especially what the impact you want it to have on the world. Yeah, also it's very important.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Forrest. We actually do this a lot with when we do the money session, bringing the money into the Zoom room. That's why I feel very playful to invite through that. So the impact I want to see in the world is a world where people get excited and commit to their genius, 100% of their genius to the world. And I want to also start a genius foundation where it's made possible through platform where anybody can maximize their genius to bring it out to the world. And the inspiration I got is actually from a genius I thought and I work with, who said he's just bringing out 5 to 10% of their genius to the world. So I was like, okay, what about if you put 100% and I started asking, actually, including Forrest, so what's the percentage of genius you think you're bringing to the world right now? And hardly anybody said 100. So I felt like there's a possibility or like a sense in everybody, that their genius is probably much bigger than that's in action right now. So I emerged over the last 3 months where I resonate a lot with you, Bob, that I've been working on myself because I said I want to bring 100% of the genius of 100 million people in the next 50 years. That's probably more realistic for me. But it starts with me. So I want to bring 100% of my genius, and discovering on the journey that I have had lots of interjects from my parents. So I wasn't 100% me. So experiencing 100% me, like getting back all the energy that is me, was actually the key to 100% genius in the first place. And yeah, releasing a lot of shadow, and of course today was another of this big day that we did with Forrest and Stefan I work with. And I come from a modality called WeFlow, so it's a collective flow state to get in action. And I'm discovering, so the higher chakras probably to go in lower chakras to open up the intimacy and money creation and shadow. So yeah, the program I came up with is 100 days of genius in action, where you really work through the like Maslow pyramid, 7 layers and 7 colors. From your shadow, light, money, intimacy, gifts, language, flow, and purpose. And you present that to the world. And I really want to work with people who have an impact to bring more genius to the world of thousands of people. So that's my passion.
Right.
And yeah, I feel quite shy and beautiful here, sharing this, and very vulnerable at the same time. But yeah, that's the impact I want to bring.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
I also just really want to highlight again the thing that really so much of that was beautiful, but I really heard becoming the change we wish to see in the world, actually being an embodied example of that which we are inviting the world into.
A very strong theme.
Yeah.
And I would say, yes, very
Yeah.
interesting. I think if we pick up these patterns, they're the most important things here. Yeah.
Sean, I'm looking to you, man. Would you like to go next?
Felt that coming. Absolutely. Sarah, thank you for being here and having this with us. Like the others, my business the next one I want to be building is really around, and the intention that I want to bring into it to change the world is really and change humans. It's innate, like creativity that we get to be and do as the creators. So it's called like Unbound Creators, and it's really around, had a really cool session today. So I'm really integrating this still for the clarity. So bear with me, I typed a lot. But really came to me today was really trying to create a space that I really like electrify the hearts of those around me to see like the beauty and the joy of this life that we get to live. So through like to have like this unbounded, like higher vibration of joy, love, consciousness, and that we get to do that together. And that can include, it's very experience based. So I'm doing all this because that's what's changed me. So that's what I want to bring the change to them, and to see this awakening inside of myself, and really tied into Forrest, Bob, and Landon, really around the health, the movement, how we get to do certain things with our bodies, with our breath, and how we can just, with stillness comes up most of the answers. And really just want to create a space for more, like, as I look at something more, make room for color and creativity for other people to really step into their highest gifts in this world, and just to kind of reflect back as a mirror that they can do anything they want. And stoke is a really big word for me. So kind of like to restoke their soul, get them fired up to find their passion, their purpose, and, you know, just to leave, as we kind of came up today as well, like on a different trajectory than they came before they met me, or the business, or the group of us. And that's tied in as well with a lot of other things with, I would love to have multiple locations with fully regenerative farms and land, container buildings, all fully sustainable, probably tied into Web3 and technology, and how that we can bring all of this in a place that we get to do it. And it might not be here yet, but we are on that front edge to build it. So, and the unbounded creativity again, like, what do we want to do? So I really want to cultivate that kind of atmosphere in this business that I'm starting with other people, and things like this, if it's virtual, if it's in person, or when it's in person, and really just, you know, ultimately too, with like Forrest's inspiration too, and yourself, eventually have like an incubator, or other people that come up with their deeper creations. And how can I, with the love of money now, it's Forrest knows, like, I would love to just be able to pour money into other people's projects because of so much love, and see them grow. So that's kind of where the intention that I'm bringing into this business to really change, not just myself, but all of us through this thing coming through me at this time. I'm sure there'll be some other ones, but that's how I feel right now. Just that innate, like, just love that, you know, what you're doing, who you are, how you move, what do you get to work on, or you get to play with. Really, let's play with life again, instead of feeling like we're always doing work. And that's really, just want to see that twinkle in people's eyes, that stoke, that fire relight, and they're just on their path, shown the door. So that's really what I feel like my intentions of the change, the business I'm bringing in.
Cool. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
And just kind of more things popping up for me hearing you. Thank you, Sean. And Sarah, one of the things that's so evident to me is how much we value the unseen. You know, the creativity, the cohesiveness.
What I wrote down here is clients, business model, like all the seen parts, how we link that unseen with the bits that needs to be seen. That's probably where there are some challenges.
I mean,
we'll explore that.
the quality of the space that people convene, right? Like we're talking about space, we're talking about cohesiveness, we're talking about supporting people accessing their innate intelligence and innate creativity. These are things that we can't necessarily touch. Maybe we can and we'll be able to soon, but at the moment. So anyway, the unseen.
Yeah.
Marie, would you like to go? Yeah, that's perfect.
Sorry about that. I'm having technical difficulties. There we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm Marie, a lot of new faces for me. And I just, first of all, want to say just how honored I am to be on this call, because many of you are much further along in your process than I am. But I see myself going these directions that you guys are, with an actual business and actually putting your ideas and your feelings into fruition. So I'm very much in my baby steps of my awakening. Long story short, I'm a nurse by trade. I'm a mom, and I was going about life like everybody else, getting up, going, working, making my normal W-2 paychecks. And then life hit. My mom passed. I got COVID. I ended up with post-COVID and was literally, not to be dramatic, on my deathbed. And I lay in there one day, and the typical things that I had been taught as a nurse were not saving my life anymore. The medications, the going to the ER, all that stuff. And I thought to myself, there's something more. And I started doing the shadow work, started meditating, just looking at other options. And sure enough, I immediately started to get better. And it was the start of my awakening. And while I know that being an RN and a nurse has saved many lives and has made a difference in the world, there's something bigger for me to do other than just passing medications or helping one person. I don't know where I'm going on this journey. I'm very much, again, in my baby stages. I just know that I'm here to meet and network and learn and grow. I very much believe that disease has an emotional component to it that is very neglected. And so I might go that direction. I'm gonna try to think what else. I just have this internal knowing, especially laying there having been so sick back in the day. I'm fully better now. And I just have this internal knowing that I'm here for a purpose. I don't know what it is yet, but
you're on track. You have it's a very powerful story, and
yes,
everything will come out of that. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was very lucky to meet Forrest just by what did we call it, Forrest? Synchronicity. So, but yeah, very nice to meet all of you. Anyway, to answer the question, what are you trying to get done? I just want to do more than what I'm able to do in my 9-to-5 type, 12-hour shift job. I see myself helping others financially when I am at that point, helping others with time, helping others heal themselves. And just really right now, networking and meeting people that also have that same guidance. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Aviv, I don't know if you're there, but I'd be curious to hear from you, if you are, the impact of your project on the world.
Well, I'm trying to make the world better for my granddaughter. That's my project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably the oldest person here on this call, so I'm in a different phase in my journey. And as Forrest said, I'm here today because we've been on an adjacent inquiry about next generation leaders and what is that and what is that for, and how are they appearing in all sorts of ways and modalities and spaces all around the world. As supposed to be concrete, I should try to do my 63 years in 3 minutes. I was born and raised in Israel. I was trained as a fighter pilot in the Israeli Air Force. And when I even before I left the Air Force, in my late 20s, I embarked on a spiritual, transformational, developmental, esoteric quest, like many people here are on this journey. And I said to my wife when I was in my mid to late 20s, I said to her, the material question for us will take care of itself when timing is right. And when I was 42, I've been by that time working for 15, 16 years with groups in the personal growth space in all sorts of transformational way, but we were broke. And I said to her, now I will do in 10 years what most people do in 30 years. And I proceeded to build a consulting strategy practice where I decided that I will source the esoteric initiatory journey that I've been on and bring something to the highest levels of leadership and fly under the radar, something that will be transformative for them and will put a lot of money in my bank account. So around about that time, I haven't read your book, Sarah, so I don't know about the story, but I wrote a check to myself about on $1 million when I had nothing in the bank. And I put a certain date on it, a few years in the future. And I didn't exactly get to that date, but I exceeded later what I thought was possible. And you talked earlier, Sarah, about people leading large organizations out of integrity. So I've worked with and helped some of the senior leadership teams in Fortune 100 companies. And I've always knew and decided that that was going to be for me a crucible with the experience itself, while it was going to make me financially free, so I could then transition and transcend that to do something else, which is what I'm now doing. It will also become a developmental transformational crucible. That is to say, could I be doing this work with them and stay tethered to the other noble purpose that was guiding me in the first place? In other words, not leave the first 20 years of my journey, but rather continue to journey in that space on the inside while I am translating some of that work into the work that we were doing in the world. So, worked with companies like Zoom that we are using here in the very, very early stages, and the previous iteration, WebEx, and other companies in Silicon Valley and all around the world. And at about when my granddaughter was born, 2019, I exceeded already what I imagined was financially going to be possible for me. And I looked in her eyes and I made the commitment that I will spend the remainder of my life on a journey to facilitate cross-generational engagement and conversation that's transformative and that will help us address the civilizational crisis that we are now crashing into. And I anticipate we'll continue to crash into over the next 10 years, inside of which all the institutional powers will have to, I believe, go through transformation, are going through transformation, will have to transform it at all levels of society and so on. So Portals of Perception is an educational, inspirational platform to share insights, perceptions, and practices, and over time build a community, cross-generational community, where people can be unlocked and unleashed to do a lot of what we just heard from all of you, in terms of unleashing the genius, unleashing that spark in the eye, releasing what we know can be done, we feel deeply is in our destinies in the near term, and essentially realize the promise that many generations of searchers and people in all walks of life, but especially on the cutting edge of the developmental, transformational, esoteric quest for the last 2 or 3 centuries felt that there was something else coming, given many different names. This is part of my research and work, actually telling the story of the Apical Transition and how it evolved and why it is evolving now, and why these next 2 decades are the critical time when so much needs to be realized from ideas and visions into actuality. I see myself to be in a unique position because I'm coming through a personal journey that integrates, I'd say this with humility, integrates what sometimes you'd need 5 lifetimes to go through, and I just by luck or judgment been squeezed to live often 3 days in a day. And for me, the next 20 years is discovering how can I best transfer it and offer others the extraordinary benefits and blessings that I've been enhanced by, and finding a way to create it as love letters to my granddaughter and her generation and a brother on the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We probably have to compare birthdays to see who's older. So it's an interesting thing for us because, of course, at one level, because of what you're interested in, the people around you, probably there's a very close resonance there in all the things that people are interested in here. And I'd be curious if we were in a completely different group, what would come out? And that's something that we need to inquire into as well, because there's a very rich array of human beings in any generation. I guess the question that comes up for me, hearing these themes that are running through what you're all talking about, which Forrest has named, is what are the challenges, especially that come up in the context of doing things a different way, not doing it the old way or not doing it the mainstream way? I think that that's a really interesting thing to understand a bit more about. What are the challenges that you face in your business? And especially, I'm interested in the challenges around actually making things real, especially that for those of you who are more spiritually or more interested in the invisible, to create the kind of changes you're all talking about, they have to happen in the visible as well, in this physical world. And as you know, you also, if it's a business, it has to make money and it has to have people, and it all needs to function well, not one bit functions and the rest doesn't. So what are the challenges that you face in doing this kind of work? I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Forrest, whatever you feel is the most efficient way to do it. I think the quality of listening is probably the most important thing, is just being able to listen and get a sense of things.
Yeah, I'm actually feeling called to answer that question that you just asked. Okay. From my experience. So jumping into the post-conventional path, the path after the conventional one. One of the hardest things for me was, especially in my age, being in my 20s, having had a successful conventional career, having everyone going, well, what are you doing now? And the real answer being, I don't know, but consistently wanting to come up with an answer that made sense when the only thing that made sense is that nothing's making sense. That was very challenging. And, you know, when I was in my 20s, I went to a venture capital firm and pitched a year-long gap year program for self-actualization. And they said, we can't give people grants to self-actualize. And I have been in this question still to this day of like, in needing to take this path, is it a requirement that you end up completely out of money, not knowing where you're going to live, like suffering? Yeah, Sean, thank you. Like, is that required that we, in this path, that we do that? Because it seems, or
is that the old way that you're releasing?
The old way that I'm releasing? Well, because there's some, Sarah, you and I have talked about this. There's some of these archetypes of the founder who suffers and sleeps in their car and has no money and then become a billionaire.
Absolutely.
or
And the spiritual
warrior,
archetypes
the
equally, you
spiritual
know,
archetypes.
which are pure suffering in order to gain access
Right.
to God.
Yeah.
So very, I think, very interesting question in there. And clearly everybody who's here is thinking that you don't have, other people don't have to suffer as much as I did. In most of the businesses that are coming through here, that's what I'm hearing. Actually, is a really strong theme is other people don't have to suffer the way that I have.
And that's kind of, to me, the for lack of a better way to put it, the bodhisattva orientation with life is I'm going to come and help alleviate suffering of everyone, because that's our collective awakening. And so, yeah, for me, it's been, and you know, the other thing that's really interesting about our generation, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us have grown up in contexts where we had access to a lot. You know, Sarah, we've talked about this, but we didn't provide that for ourselves. And it's a very different thing to drive a Mercedes when your parents bought it for you than it is to self-generate a Mercedes for yourself. And so the difference between being given something and having access to it versus being supported to empower yourself enough to manifest it in your own life are two very different experiences. And so what's challenging is a lot of the conventional ways to help, quite frankly, not only aren't helpful, but also can be harmful if they are alleviating the evolutionary impulse, which can be seen as either passion or suffering, depending on how you relate to it.
And you know that the root of the word passion is suffering. You know that they have the same meaning originally, the Latin word for passion. The root of passion is the word to suffer in Latin.
I did not know that. That's even better, because to me, the evolutionary impulse is passion or suffering. It's just, how do you want to experience it? So, you know, but if someone alleviates that and says, oh, let me help you out, I'll give you $10,000, that can actually cause harm in a way if it takes the budding impulse of creation out of the moment. It can be disorienting. So I've been in a question.
Only if you haven't read my book.
Well, that's what I want to ask you, is that when is it helpful to, how do I say this? I'm kind of losing that. So I'm just going to come back to.
Yeah, let's get that belongs probably in a different context. So what I think would be really useful, rather than telling the same story, your version of Forrest's story, if Forrest obviously has shared something here, maybe each of you can add in, so we just build a bit of a picture of what are the main challenges that you have faced or are facing in becoming entrepreneurs, trying to do things this different way, the post-conventional way. So yeah, let's build upon it rather than do it repeating things. Thank you. That's yeah, it's important stuff, this.
Sean, my attention's coming to you. Would you be willing to go?
To me?
Yeah, man, to you.
Yeah, so can you just reframe that question, Sarah?
Yeah,
Build
so
on
what are the
Forrest?
challenges that you have faced or are facing in starting and running businesses in the new way, and not to repeat a version of what Forrest said, so only add new information.
Yeah, so I guess in the new way, I'm still exploring how that looks. As and with all the information, there's quite a bit with the creative and the technology. And for my story and why I'm building what I want to build to help people out of the suffering. I just looked at passion and suffering, by the way. I'm going down that wormhole later. I've spent the last 3 or 4 years in like startup world, grinding, barely money, scratching by to, raise money to do, etc., or working fourth employee in a startup to get, as they call in the crypto, like a rug pull, owed a lot of money that could have changed a lot of things in the past. And I've actually learned I just released that with that founder, and I just finally released that, probably too long, but it's all part of the due time. So with that, I always keep thinking that, like, to be a world changer, you have to be scratching by, you have to be eating ramen, you have to be barely on E of your tank of gas, and instead of, it doesn't have to be that way. So with talking with Forrest, sometimes it's to just shift that. Like, I can be a founder and have an abundance of money that wants to help me solve more problems with the money. And that's just where I've been. And with those past things, it's, for me, it's like, I without the money, I would say I have more experience that I've learned multiple MBAs just through this grind of an experience is what I'm trying to create as well for other people to experience, like, hey, this can happen without having to go through this. And just because I'm in debt or etc., like, that's great. But the experience that I've learned and how I can passionately talk about my story and really live that, and people can almost live it through me, is what I want people to experience without having to experience. It's like, oh wow, I see what you're saying, and I don't want that, but how you're giving me the tools to do this abundantly, to have tools to have more money, to be able to solve these problems that I want to solve. So that's been my past, and I've always thought it was right there, and then it's the next thing, it's the next thing. And yeah, was very hard, and that's what got me into this awakening, like this journey. And now I would love to be able to express, just because I don't have that success of a startup or a business yet, to what my degree of success would be, whatever that looks like when I define it, that it doesn't mean I am not successful in my own right. I'm not whole from my experience. And so through all that experience, it's been really cool to say, like, wow, that doesn't define me. I am whole. Like, there's way more out there to have grace for myself. So yeah, I've had my fair share of ramen and things, and wondering where it's going to come from. So now it's like, wait, that was a cool story. That's going to be a chapter in the book. Now let's tell the next one. So that's kind of for the old way. And the new way is still interesting for me because of how we can raise funding through Web3 or crypto, and just different ways of thinking about raising money instead of going to investors. Particularly, maybe you can raise that within your own community by adding utility and value based on a membership or something, what have you. It's endless. It's really boundless. So that is exciting to me, and also have to ground down because it's almost too much for me as my body works. So I'm really excited to see how some people are raising money, how they're doing things new with money. And I know you just ask and it's given. So maybe it's just ask and then it's there, and then we can maybe not. I don't know. I like Forrest's way. Giving a car is different than earning the car. So very much so. And yeah, I think that's my old story and old ways of doing it. And I'm really open to the new ways that are being done, and that might not be talked about in public, and maybe just on Zoom, things like this, and closed doors. And I'm very, very excited to see what that new financial money system looks like as we get to build it.
The thing that's shocking for me in all of this, it might sound like a weird thing to say, but how similar are the challenges of all of you with the challenges that I meet, really with a lot of women, especially, probably old enough to be your mums, but often facing almost exactly the same challenges. It's so interesting. And having the same desires as well. There's a generational kind of coming together, I think, where people at all different ages are wanting really similar things now, which I find fascinating. There's an alignment of purpose on the planet, which is extraordinary, and perhaps very redeeming. Might mean we can actually do something. Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome. And Sarah, I just want to say, on the back of what you just shared there, and I know we've been talking about it this week, it just is a resonance of, I am not alone. And that there's more out there than I could ever imagine. And by using my voice and speaking or writing something out there and just having this kind of conversation, that we get to bring more of us together that have this similar view. And it's just like, hey, you're not alone. And I know that's something big that happened, a shift for me this week. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Sarah, just hearing that, we had a conversation recently, Aviv and I convened on Next Generation Leadership that some folks on this call came to and spoke at. And the theme that emerged, there was no real agenda for the call, but most of the call was spent about embodying feminine leadership. What does that look like in these times?
Very interesting.
And so it's interesting to me, my experience of the group here is everyone here has access to embodied feminine energy. And I also clicked immediately after that too. I was recently told 98% of venture capitalists are men. And so I'm just curious about that. So yeah.
And it feels so, literally that world feels like it doesn't have a soul. There are people who have souls. I mean, everyone has a soul, but that world, because I don't really interact with it very much, but I'm very close to it with what I'm doing in LoveTO, and I'm raising investment as well, but I take a different path. I'm taking a different approach from the mainstream approach. Yeah, it's really interesting how these worlds knock up against each other. So we'll see. Yeah,
I feel like adding right on to that. My challenge, I want to mention like 3 really quick ones to add on. Is actually not knowing, like my assumptions of like not knowing those VC people, or private investors, and the personas and so on, and I have lots of assumptions around them, that maybe you can confirm that they don't have a soul, most of them. Or
they all, let's just be, I think all of them have a soul. They just may not be very in touch with it. The collective group is not very in touch with it.
Sure. Yeah, so that they're not really open towards the new ways of doing things, or so I'm like, it's, for me, the main question is a lot around language. So yeah, thinking of like how to approach them, or even new clients who are open to that. So I feel like I'm going through the path of reinventing my own language, or in a transformation work, and then having to go back actually and reinvent the Orange language, say, in Integral, so it's accessible to them.
Yeah.
My parents still don't understand what I'm doing, really, kind of thing. And
that's actually that's a very important point that you just made there.
Yeah.
I had the experience, I'll just mention this because it's easy to just slide over that, but that might really be the heart of things. I had an experience earlier this week where somebody told me that some of the webinars we've done around investing, that the people didn't understand what we were talking about.
Exactly.
And I really, I've had to really look at that and get to grips with the fact that people need to understand in very, very clear terms what we're talking about. So I think that that's actually really important. It's like my parents, those investors, these clients, these people who could really benefit from what I'm doing don't even understand what I'm talking about. That bridge is so important.
Yeah, and the gap is pretty wide. The more I develop in there, it's like, no, this is not normal to these normal people, what they are usually interacting. But I find it, I find the joy and the love there also, because my passion, one of them, is languages. So,
perfect.
But there's a lot of challenge there, and finding myself a bit alone.
Yep.
There's lots of peers in English, of course, and some German. I grew up in Germany, so I have access to that. But reinventing an amber culture, which is Japanese, is like a whole lot of other set of interesting challenges.
So what was the expression you used there? Reinventing
the language. Yeah.
But you were something culture, you said.
Oh, the amber. So orange is orange is still, if we talk money, fitness, and I felt WeFlow is a lot about explicit culture. So I thought, the Japanese people would benefit from it, and they did. But if it's not really experiential, immersive, the first going to, if there's too much talking about it on a experiential, sensory level. So it's very interesting. So maybe less language, but yeah, that's what I'm experimenting here and getting a lot of frustrated and feeling lonely in that sense. But yeah, maybe
Interesting.
inviting more
Yeah, thank
people.
you.
Would be nice.
I have something to add. Something that's coming to mind is that it gives permission to other people who, take, for example, people on Wall Street. We're joking saying they don't have a soul. We all know they have a soul, but we're tapping into that soul by being whatever we are, the light workers. We're giving them we're planting that little seed that they go home and maybe in a brief moment, they think to themselves, oh, there's another way to do this. Or, oh, what is she talking about? It just plants that little seed for other people to maybe have that process to think about other possibilities.
Yeah, that's clearly, to me, that's the essence of being human, really. That's what human life is about, ultimately. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So what more challenges?
Bob, I saw you raise your hand. Would you like to go? I said Bob Perna's name. Yeah, there you go, bro.
Yeah, so how do I put this most succinctly? I would say my biggest challenge right now, I'm not necessarily thinking about it through the lens of business, but I know it serves the business ultimately, is how do I scale up my capacity for service for people? Like,
Absolutely, you're connected with business.
yeah.
And funnily enough, when I was listening to you, the question I wanted to ask you is, do you have a vision of scaling what you do, or do you see yourself as a kind of hands-on practitioner? I didn't ask the question, but it's very interesting that you're bringing that forward now. Exactly.
Yeah, you see the vision. The answer is to that question is yes. Like, I'd never want to stop doing hands-on work for people and one-on-one work for people, but yeah, like, I think scaling it up is really important as far as I can take it. So like, I've gotten really good. I had a new client come in to the office today. We spent 2 hours during our assessment, and she probably at least 4 or 5 times was like, "You're blowing my mind right now." And I've gotten really good in a 2-hour period with one person blowing their mind wide open and like really opening the door for a paradigm shift for them. So then the challenge for me is like, how do I ephemeralize that process? Like, so how do I do that in 1 hour with one person? How do I do that in 30 minutes with one person, 15 minutes with one person? And then how do I do that for 5 people, 10 people, 100 million people, just to put a number out there? Yeah. So like, that's really the biggest challenge for me where I'm at right now, is, yeah, how do I scale the service? Because then the business stuff like is gonna just click into place and be all good from there. But yeah, how do I like help the most people without?
And there's some very interesting questions in there as to, there's a path of mastery, personal mastery that could do that. There's a path of business mastery that would do it in a completely different way. Very different paths. There may be a combination, which is probably the most beautiful, but I don't know. It's really a very interesting question. Okay, I've written down scaling capacity. Thank you. Any more challenges? Anything that hasn't been said that feels like it needs to be said now?
I'm feeling called to share right now, and I think one of the biggest challenges that I've come across is creating new systems for this new way of doing things, because it seems like when I'm trying to present this new way of doing things, it's almost like going up against an older paradigm that has gone through the trial and error and created all these systems, and it's like a David versus Goliath.
Yep.
All the time. And so I'm constantly searching within myself, like, okay, how do I make this into an organized process, make this into a system that I can teach somebody? And so that, you know, it's like, it ties the language in, it ties scaling in, it ties all of that stuff into it. Because it's like, okay, I'm trying to change the system or offer an alternative, but that system, they're on level like 100. And so they're like, okay, what are you going to do for me? And I'm like trying to piece together these little things and say, like, I promise you it's better. I promise you it's better. But they're just like, oh, well, I don't know. So I think
Forrest has the same challenge sometimes.
Yeah, I imagine that.
How do you talk to people who already, they think they're here, there, but you have something that opens a different, something to them that they're not even aware that they're missing, but you know how much difference it would make to their life.
Exactly. And I know a lot of that is an internal process of embodying.
Landon, we just lost your
hearing
audio.
you.
We just lost your audio, boy.
Can
Yeah. Well, now you
Okay.
muted. There we go.
Yeah. So yeah, I know a big part of that is embodying it so much that they're actually curious, that they're like, whoa, okay, there is something different here, and we would like to be open to that. And so that's been a challenge for me.
Yeah. Yes, I can feel that. Yeah, very clear. Anything else that's coming up as a challenge? I think this is really helpful in many ways. I just see, and it is territory that I feel like I'm navigating all the time myself. How do you bring together this sensing and knowing and personal experience of better ways of doing things into a world that is fairly systemized in doing things another way? How do you do that as a business so that you can scale it? How do you bring those things together without losing your own integrity? So, well, actually not without losing your integrity, whilst growing your own integrity, growing your experience. Like Aviv said, you don't want to go back. You want to keep growing what's really precious to you and bring that into a business so that it can be scaled. That's really the essence of the challenge here, the things that come up around that. That's really interesting. So the other question that I'm really curious about is, my questions haven't been very clear yet. I'm trying to find a really clear question. So it might take me a moment to get there. What I'm interested in is where you want to learn something or where you want to grow something. Let's say you realize, oh my goodness, I'm just not experiencing enough joy, or I need to find the way to make these systems work in this new kind of business where the old systems don't work. So those are very different things, more joy or business systems, but they're things where you realize there's something I don't know and I need to get better at it. What really helps you to learn those kinds of new things, and also what really doesn't help you? So for example, what really doesn't help me is somebody has this formula that they promise works, and as long as you follow the formula, it will work, and I follow the formula and it doesn't work in my business. And I've done a lot of that. That's something that really doesn't help me. Something somebody said earlier, and a few of you highlighted in a way, is things that enable me to find myself and my own connection and my own way of doing it, that support me. That really helps me. I would say in my community, the community itself really helps people to learn. But if they had the community and I wasn't there challenging all the time, it wouldn't be the same. So I'm trying to find out, in your generation and in this new way of doing things, what are effective ways of learning what we don't know yet, and also what are the no-nos? What do we absolutely not want to do? Because we all need to keep learning.
Sarah, for me, hearing that, I feel like it even goes one layer deeper, which is not learning what we don't know, but it's also how do we live from not knowing? Because the world is
that's another
evolving.
question as well. Yes.
Yeah. It's like the world's evolving so fast, we can't even, like you can't, by the time you intellectually take something in and process it, it feels outdated already. So we need to learn things that
So
are
that to me is the first part of the answer to the question, is that it's kind of like, how do we support growth? Because we all recognize we need support. How do we support growth in an environment where we actually know that we don't know a lot of the time? Maybe that's is that a better question?
Yeah, I just feel called to highlight that, like, when I feel like a lot of us have gotten, you know, words. It's like we need to access in the moment the resource we need for the evolution in the moment. So our generation is saying, how do we do that either from an internally resource space or from the space that we're in? We can actually, in the we space, resource that for ourselves. And so it's in the moment, real time, and embodied, actionable learning. It's not that I want to just intellectually understand this. It's I need to get it in a way where I can walk my talk and show up in the way that I actually am this thing that I claim to care about.
So I think actually you're answering a better question, which is what there's a question that comes out of all those challenges is, I don't know how to phrase it quite, but it's like, what do we actually need here? In the face of all those challenges and what we're trying to do, what do we actually need?
It's kind of maddening for me.
Yeah, okay, so let's answer that question instead. So accessing in the moment the resources we need, whatever the methodology is, we need to be able to access things very fast. We need to be able to respond in an environment where all we really know is that we don't know very often. And this embodied actionable learning, direct, like for me, I'm constantly working on how do we directly produce results, not go and learn how to do something and then practice, but how do we actually get results directly, which is the serendipity and the synchronicity and all of that. Yeah, okay. What do you need? Sometimes it's hard to know. And I'm definitely hearing you don't need like what I would call head learning at all.
I just want to add on it, because you mentioned we space forest. The most important thing is freedom, everything given with freedom. So if things are not given with freedom, which is forced, and if you're not open, nothing is good, basically. So I would say freedom, space, and safety to grow, and what concretely we would need is on top, and to know it in each moment, to have access to. And yeah, through your book, I've gotten to chapter 19, part 1.
Is that the bit where it says don't go past this bit?
Exactly, the vision.
My recommendation is read the whole thing first and then come back to that.
Okay, good. Then I have permission to from the author herself to go. Lovely. But to really like say yes to my desires and what I would love to, and that's what I've worked on with Forest. What I've probably suppressed the most in a imaginary limited state. Yeah, so even with your book, I feel like some community or somebody who's here for me, and that could be me that I learned today as well. But how to be with. I've come from more like being an action doctor. So how to get in action and motion. But I'm learning the most, like this importance of being with it, being with the not knowing, and just being okay with that, and let the truth bubble up. So yeah, very fresh, but that's
Thank you.
yeah, at the core. And on top, that'll be like connections to people, or network, or introducing, or getting actually a call like this to talk about our passions or businesses, and to further develop in a breakout who are interested with. We have a demo day coming up on Monday, but these opportunities, I think, bringing people together that they are like similar or like-minded, yeah, and to have the web to feel like we're not alone, like concretely.
Yeah.
I know these names and I can call them, or that I think would be such a safety network in a true sense. Yeah, all the new ways of doing business.
Yeah. Anything else?
You're on mute, Marie. Here, I can ask you to unmute. See that? Does that work? There
Perfect.
you go.
Just one quick thing to add. I think what I'm hearing is that we need safety to know we're safe in doing this. We need the confidence, which I think comes from community. And then we also, at least for me, need that space to listen, which our world does not give us a ton of. We have all these electronics and schedules and work, and we have bills, and we do need to make money, where we need to just find that little bit of space every day to just listen to what's in our internal gut. And that's where we're gonna, I feel like that will overcome a lot of these challenges that we have.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a question that I have all the time in my business. This is a really practical question, and maybe given everything that you've said, feels so aligned with what I've been developing and learning and teaching as well in various different ways. The question that I'm always looking to explore is, how do we, I need to make a system that does this. So I'm asking for some quite practical help here. If you imagine, we probably have a system where somebody becomes a member of our business. It's a mutual company, which is a bit like a cooperative. So people become members. The farmers are members, the investors are members, people who work in the company are members. And we need to build a system that supports those people as people in all these things that you're talking about here. We need to create that space of freedom and safety, and where people can listen. There will be many communities that form through the work we're doing. I have a little group of potential investors, and the person who's inviting them wants to run that as a community. She wants a community of investors in LoveTO, because they all want to hang out and talk about this together. The farmers all want to hang out with each other, and they belong to this thing that represents a different way, and they want to spend time and connect with each other. I foresee that this is going to happen everywhere. That's one piece. Another piece is many people are going to come in and work for us or be members in some capacity, coming from the mainstream world. And some of you have described how bruising that can be. And it's pretty bruising for us when people come in with all their old ways of thinking and they want to be part of our team. So we need to educate people as quickly as possible how to be able to handle that. I don't know the answers, and I don't need to know the answers, and I don't even need the leaders to know all the answers at the moment. It's actually fine for us to be in this space where we're navigating unknown territory, because we're building something that's never been built before. And this is a more natural way of living. So my task at the moment is to build the bones, the skeleton of that system. My my belief and expectation is it's the people who will really, they will make it work and they will put all the flesh on. I would never build something without that. And for me, this is a part of that. If we're going to have a lot of young people interacting with this business, which we will, if I start listening now, then the ideas that I need to have and the things I need to put in place will be informed by your experience, not only mine. So the question that's on my mind all the time is around delivery. How do we deliver experiences that support all of the things you're talking about and that support people to access the resources they need in the moment, which to me, Forrest, is really the heart and essence of everything that my book is about. And it solves all the problems at the same time, really. How do we create that direct creative access to life? I'd love to hear from you. Anything that you can say as a business owner, you have to think about, how do I deliver this to my clients? Bob is doing it hands-on at the moment, but trying to think about, how do I deliver that in the future? Partly through my own mastery and partly through my business systems. Landon's thinking about business systems. How do I make systems here? Somebody who spoke, Shelby spoke early on, they're building a system. It's much more a systems-based business. How do you like to have things delivered to you? Where there is a business, this is a business, and we do have a structure, and we have to have a structure, and people will interact with whatever system we build. How do you like to interact? How do you like to have things delivered to you if you're the client or the user? That's what I would love to, anything that you can share on that. It maybe feels, it's not that it's vague, it doesn't have a lot of context. Like, I think about things like, simple things like, do you want this on your phone? Do you want an app or not an app? Do you want, like, if you're in a community, how do you want to get together? Like, what have you seen that works and doesn't work? What do you love? What do you not like? In the terms of how we deliver actual experiences to people. Because part of the context of this is, I can see that Forrest builds a beautiful community around his work. And maybe we will find individuals who all have these beautiful skills. Maybe I'm partly answering my own question, have different ways of doing that. There will never be another Forrest. And so part of the inquiry is, how do you build something and scale something that that allows people to bring their beauty forward, rather than systemizing everything so much that everyone's squeezed into a formula. Yeah, I think I'm going round a little bit here, because I don't know exactly what the question is. I know there's a delivery thing that we need to do in a different way in our business. All of these things you talk about, how do you access in the moment those resources, embodied, actionable stuff, freedom, safe space, those things we do really well in my business, in my teaching, learning business. The delivery part, I feel, needs to be upgraded to suit.
What's your challenge?
What's my
one of the
challenge?
things that's super coming online is that we're accessing so much intelligence from collective mind and guidance from collective mind. And so, like, a lot of us live in the question of, what can we do through me? And if you see larger wholes, you actually say, how does my forest I be oriented to be in service to the larger superorganism, for example? And so one of the things that's confusing, to say the least, is, how do you know what you need when in every moment you're just opening up to and surrendering into what's being asked of you? Because it's not really that I even know what I'm doing. I'm just following the guidance that I have in the moment. And so the question for me is, how do we have the resources that are coming from the space and from collective mind be communicated in a way that's cohesive, so you know where in the whole needs nourishment and where in the whole there is pent up resources and potential. And then you can have, like we talk about, myocapital releases, for example. If you look at like, you have the same thing as in the fascial system of the collective right now. You have places where there is information or power or resources or nourishment that's not moving its way through the whole. And when we talk about tensegrity a lot, the integrity of the whole held together through appropriate tensions. And so for me, it's, can we open up to and embody the new orientation feedback mechanisms for how you move through reality from this place? It's an entirely different orientation with reality, taking in different information.
There's a difficulty in that, which is, and Buckminster Fuller experienced that himself, I think, in many ways, is that usually if you only hold it that way, you won't have any money. You might move resources from one place to another, you won't have any, and that doesn't work.
Totally.
That doesn't work. So you need to have you in there as well. And what you want, it's not just what the system wants. There's no such thing as a system without a bunch of people. There's no such thing as just what the creator wants or what the whatever. What does LoveTO? I can say, what does LoveTO want? LoveTO is way bigger than me. And I feel like I'm just like a piece that has to show up on this planet to bring that in, because it can't be delivered here without human beings. But if I don't stand up and say what I want, actually, I miss, the integrity isn't there.
Yeah, totally.
And that's the piece that is happening in all the sourcing communities and guidance communities, is they're completely switched off from physical reality, except in a sort of squeezed through way. And we can see there's resources there and there are people who need it there, but you don't have the capacity to even move those resources, because you actually have to develop your personal capacity and personal power to develop the power of the whole. So that really goes to the heart of what Love Money, Money Loves You is about. It's not, like, it's saying there's a shift from personal, I want the mansion, I want the big car and the big, which is what our parents or your parents lived, and my generation mostly has lived. There's a shift to what's the change we want to make in the world. But that shift must include you. If you leave, and I see every time I leave myself out, I say, oh, we don't have so much money at the moment. We'll keep ourselves, you know, we'll just be really tight around ourselves. We've got all these things to pay, people to pay for. That always shuts down the flow. And the minute I treat myself better, it opens up the whole system. So this is the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
Okay. And therefore we must always be able to answer the question, what do you want? Knowing that what you want is also part of creating something that's way, way, way beyond you. That's the way that that we show up for our part in it. Very interesting.
I don't think me diving into nuance right now is of service to this conversation.
This is a very big
I'm just gonna
conversation.
agree. There's no we without me. I put that in the chat, and
Yeah,
go ahead,
yeah.
Sean.
Well, I'm
Without
just
me
thinking,
and
like,
without you.
yeah, that's right. Without all of us.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of Sarah's question on how do we deliver experiences that support all these things we talk about and access the resources in the moment, right? So that was your question.
Yeah.
I kind of just typed it out. And it is kind of big, but it's also, and for instance, I love these kind of questions. And you said like an app or website, like I build products and different things, and I'm very customer empathy focused. It's not, a lot of companies out there are building things that no one wants, just to spend money to do
it.
And this is what I'm like working through, like interviews, and it was like, well, how do you build products? How do you know what you're building? I ask my customers. I ask the people. I know what I want, but I'm not building it necessarily for me. It might come from me, but it's really what do they actually want, and then actually weeding through those questions that they might think they know what they want, but can we go deeper and say, like, what do they really need, and how do we add tremendous value? And what really came up for me is something I've spoken with Forrest around, like kind of this around creators, with like a marketplace for creators, or a marketplace. And again, creators is it's whole. It could be a Michelin chef, it could be a vegan. It's not just photo and video. And I only say that because of myself. But there's a marketplace. There could be a place where they can be found, is what came up to me, but it's really interesting. I don't want to get too blown away because I just think it's there, and that could be an old system, but there's a new way of how do I find these things that are aligned with what I see the world coming. And if it's, and you ask like, how do I like to learn? It's like that system kind of needs to be pretty robust to a point of it looks somewhat structured, but also it might have some flow and ebb and flow to it where the we gets to add to the greater. It's like, hey, we really like this or we like that, and then we can integrate it inside of it so they have this like feel that they're adding value to, as I'd say, adding value to the network, right, and a social cause. So, and that's something maybe with like these regenerative farmers where they get to add input and saying this and like how they get to be found. And like I love that because I was down in Baja, California, and I met somebody who's doing so much regenerative stuff, and I met someone else down there doing regenerative stuff with crypto and Web3 and the land. So I'm very aligned.
Yeah.
But I would love to go deeper with this and help you with that because those questions I like to think about.
Well, maybe we could have a separate conversation around that because you are answering my question.
Yeah, we could go deeper and deeper.
To answer my question.
Yeah.
And you know, this is LoveTO. LoveTO is very, although there's a central core thing to it, it's very distributed in the experience because it's so big and it's going to be in countries all over the world. We can't centrally control an experience, but we can support a spirit of experiences that are happening all over the world. And to me, that's the core of it. My job is to support the spirit of LoveTO through the entire ecosystem. That's my personal responsibility. There will be a whole system that's delivered around that. There will be learning. There will be some real courses and classes that people need to do because they never done anything like that. And they need a real induction. They're not like you guys who have already done some of this. People need starting points. And some of it, but it will become it needs to become very self-developing. Self-expanding at the same time. Like you say, it needs that structure and it needs that flow and it needs that contribution, but a structure that enables that all the time. We've built that around the money piece, and most of the work that you guys are doing will in due course fit beautifully into LoveTO, and it will solve your money problems, I'm sure, but not quite yet. So don't get too excited, otherwise you kind of blow it all up. Just hold the tension. That's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, and it sounds, I'd love to go further because as they get to add value again back to the platform, and you know, your vision for it is you're the vision, as I've told for in the group this. I have my vision. I want to lead it, but I also want to lead maybe even behind, but side by side. And it's like, hey, do you want to bring something on here? Like, what feedback? And again, like, let's not build things that we don't actually need because
I've done enough of that in my life. I can build beautiful things also that half people love and want, but they don't. It's got to also not be built just so that people want it, but that they know they want it. So they actually, if they have to buy it, they actually want to pay for it, or if they get it for free, they actually engage with it. Because a lot of systems that are provided to companies, no one ever goes to them. They don't use the systems that they have because nobody ever thought about the interface between the person who's got a headache and we who've for years provided solutions to people for their headaches or whatever, you know, but no one who had a headache would ever go to the system to find what we had offered them. So these are very practical business problems. If we do this right, then we could build something world class. And that's when I say we, you know, there may be pieces that some of you actually have to play in this because you're thinking about the same things as we are.
I'd love to chat more on that because we can go really deep, and even just to think on asking those questions, because that's kind of when people ask like, how would you build this product? Those are what I think of first.
Yep.
And maybe what we're thinking of hasn't been invented yet, right? And maybe it's a cross the industry innovation of multiple things that we get to put together to make that a thing. So maybe it is just seeing like a different ecosystem that, we take this from over here to here. Now that's step one.
Yeah.
So,
And
I'll
the
do some
beautiful
thinking
thing
about
is
it.
we can make steps, and those steps can, as long as the core is right in the first step, that integrity is held, and the tensegrity and all those things, then and the what is it they call it? I'm not very familiar with the Bucky language, but that the kind of the core mission of the thing, there's a word, there's an expression for it. It's like the core pattern of the, maybe it's not a Bucky word, but there's a sort of something like, it's not purpose integrity, but it's something like that. It's the sort of mission integrity is held in every part of it. Then that's what I want. It's then so that it's fractal in that way, that any piece that we build, it means that the future pieces that will be built will have that integrity within them, that fundamental pattern of the spirit of LoveTO, which is just the spirit of LoveTO, which is delivered, that part is definitely delivered to us and interpreted by us, but that doesn't come from within me. I share in it and I experience it. That, I think, is the important piece. Yeah. And I've, you know, when I listen to you, Forrest, and I watch what you do, I know that some of what you do and the way you do things is a part of what we're talking about here. I wrote down the word incubation, pattern integrity. Thank you, Kari. Incubation. Also, I'm hearing very strongly through all of this, like incubation processes that work. The ones we have at the moment, I don't think work very well, and they're also not a good business model. They don't work as a business. The other thing I'm hearing, and you're kind of pushing me in the direction, I know I have to create this, and I've resisted it for a while, is the only thing I've done is register a trademark, which could well be the wrong name, but I think of it as Life Cred, is a system for credentialing so that people can find each other. So that rather than, you know, our current credentials are CVs and our education and all of these things. But thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. But what if we could have a system whereby the people who've experienced your work really provide the credibility for the real qualities that you bring to it? And it might be the trust that you build around you, or it might be the safety that's in the space, not just I've got this qualification and that qualification. And then there's a search system, and you can find people who've had the experience you want to have. So I lost 100 pounds of weight. I want to find someone else who's done that. I don't want the teacher who's very good at marketing that. I want 10 people who've done that, and I want to talk to them. So we start to be able to credential each other. And then the ideal is that we start to be able to create value through that credentialing as well, which can be tied in with money. That would be even more powerful. I think this is a very important piece of that plays out in all of this delivery side of things.
Sarah, I've actually made a database schema for that exact thing. Like,
have
breaking,
you?
yeah. So I can.
Okay, so let's
get
talk about
together
that.
and I can share with you.
Yeah,
like, I've schematized that entire thing.
I'd be curious what that looks like, because what you also explained there, Sarah, was like very similar to what is coming in the Web3 world of a soulbound token, where CVs and all of these things are actually tied into like this one. The theory is like that will hold all of the things and the successes or the achievements. I've lost 100 pounds. I have ran 50, you know, whatever it will become, that someone can quickly look on a blockchain, see it's vetted, it's true. I can go type a CV all day and I can say I was the president of the United States.
Oh, no.
You know,
Exactly.
But this is actually, it's checked across the system. You verified, hey, I got a hole in one, Forrest and Landon saw it. Yes, you did. It's there and it's tied to me now, and etc. So
okay, I'd love to.
Yeah, let's look at that.
I'm
I'm curious with Forrest's schema too, because I think there's a lot there.
Yeah,
very cool.
That's excellent. Anything else? Anything that's coming up for you, Kari?
I was going to say, I'd love to hear from Kari and Julie and Juliana. That would be amazing. How is this for you? What's happening for you?
It's really beautiful to see the themes that are emerging. Like, it's very clear. I mean, I think I'm seeing that for you too, Sarah, that there's maybe like 5 or 6 things here that are very, very clear themes. And it's beautiful to see how they cross-pollinate with what already exists in Sarah's work. But they also answer a lot of questions about where this work is headed and what is actually needed and how that all is housed within LoveTO. Because the combination of what LoveTO's proposition is, Sarah's body of work, and you guys articulating where you are at, that is like a really, really powerful intersection.
It's kind of like the core of everything that somehow we need to do.
Yeah.
It's like we've identified the core, I feel, in this session, which really stands in Forrest's question about accessing, in many ways, it's accessing the resources we need when we need them in order to be able to do whatever it is that we're here doing. I'm not going to say here to do. I sometimes think that makes it feels like, you know, somebody out there has decided what you're here to do, and you've got to try and figure it out, and you're mostly going to fail. It's like, I'm not very good on that version. I'm slowly surrendering to being more, you know, less.
Sarah,
less
we can make an app called Prophecy. I'm just playing. I'm just being playful.
I think prophecy is a very important part, actually, of probably what we need to be teaching people or sharing with people, is the skills of prophecy. That's part of how you are accessing in the moment. But really, yeah. Sorry, Kari, let's go back to you to see if there's anything. Is there anything you want to ask or probe?
No, I think there's something super powerful here at the end. When we got into this marketplace, it's almost like sometimes I feel like the whole conversation is leading to like this point that you actually reach at the end. Because it's like we begin to answer these questions around the actual system, which I think is like that's the next piece for us to define. So in a way, this feels like a bit of a jumping off point to something that is actually the meat of the question we need to answer next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very defining. It feels to me as though it would actually be useful to have more conversations like this with some other groups as well. And that could be useful for you too, Forrest, because you might learn what other groups or other people are looking for, and it would help you to learn how to position what you do for them. So there might be a way we can reach out to some different groups of people in your kind of age range, where it benefits everybody to do that. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that it feels valuable. This listening time feels really valuable.
Yeah, and I would just say on that note, you know, in the listening, I can really, I appreciate all of you sharing from such a vulnerable place, because it's vulnerable. It's like exposing. If we're going to change the way that this is all done, I think the inception point is sort of naming that vulnerability, like naming that tension. So just thank you. It really is like an honor to listen to humans who are playing at this leading edge in which they're willing to start with the most vulnerable. So thank you.
Anything else? Anybody?
I'd love to.
Yeah, go, Jules.
I just would love to get all voices in. So yeah, Juliana and Julie.
Yeah,
please.
thank you. I wasn't sorry for being late as well. It was a long time ago now. So I've worked with Sarah. I'm not sure, just to put myself in context. It was really a privilege. I really valued the wisdom. I was sitting thinking, I wish I was that wise 20 years ago to be, you know, I always had a knowing there was something else, but I definitely didn't have a space where I could explore that. And, you know, kudos to you, Forrest, and to Sarah to providing that for everyone to be here in this, you know, like way as well. So it's beautiful. A couple of themes were coming up for me. One was language, which I think is really key here. We're playing with that. Julie and I are looking at the words that are used to explain the work and this way and this exploration, because there's a way that we can become separate, I think, from the oneness, and that is an interest in of mine in this work, because if we, and I'd be interested to see what you guys think of that, as you start to develop something new, you start to separate yourself from the collective, but what does that do then? Sarah's gone, I've got to be
I
somewhere.
just realized I was supposed to be there 25 minutes ago. For some reason, I thought I was supposed to finish at 10:30, but it's 10. I better go. I'm just going to leave you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate
Thank you very much.
Yeah, see you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Should be diving into the Thank You Money Q&A.
Well, when she tells them where she was, they'll be.
Well, this is really important. It is really, really important. Actually, Catalina's just sent a message. Where's Sarah? It's really important because so my experience is very much in managing energy and feeling energy. So the conversation is just really expanding out for everybody, for you guys as well. And to have the access to someone like Sarah with her mastery and experience of actually creating successful businesses in this way is just awesome. Yeah, so the other word that came up, which I was interested in, was safety, and what that meant. I didn't quite understand what safety meant for you guys.
There's a
Make
whole
your
bunch of
mind
them. There's a whole bunch of them that we cover in WeFlow. There's psychological safety, cognitive safety, gift safety, financial safety, emotional safety. So actually so many. And you can, there are points where you can feel unsafe or triggered depending on how much is clear or not, unchecked assumptions. And we have a whole stack actually for teams or groups and companies to check, and practices to meet them. So that's what I meant. The different kinds of safeties, and it starts with the freedom we give first and foremost. But yeah, so many different areas actually. So I'm happy to go deeper into that if you're interested in especially in the language. So yeah, that'd be wonderful.
I think it would be interesting to explore. I don't have we'll set up some more conversations. I think for sure would be really valuable.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know this kind of opens a can of worms that I don't want to go down, but I also just feel called to like name, just bring a trauma-informed perspective in, because there's also like embodied felt sense of safety. So we have a lot of, how do I want to say this? Basically, there can be distortions or unmetabolized experiences we've had that are playing out in our current experience. And so there can also be safety in our experience based on our past. Yeah, I don't really want to go down that, but I want to name, I feel it's important to name it.
It helps. I didn't appreciate the context into the WeFlow model, so that's helpful. Thank you. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. Really enjoyed it, the conversation.
WeFlow is a lot of things, but one of the things it is a way to create cultures intentionally. So really getting into the architecture of how we relate with each other interpersonally and in collective space. It's pretty, I would say it's beyond revolutionary. It's beyond pioneering. It's really, it's beyond leading edge is what I would say for.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
Julie, I'd be curious to hear from you if you feel like.
Hi, everyone. Well, I'll just reiterate everything that Juliana and Carrie have said. It has been an absolute privilege to be here and listen. From my perspective, I work with Juliana and now Carrie in marketing and social media, and I try and when I'm working, I try to work from a foundation of love, and I really can feel that all from you. It's just so beautiful. And my background is in early childhood, and that feeling of when you're welcoming children into your community, it's really all about them. It's a real focus on them and where they're at and what they're doing. And I've just felt that message from you, that building this new system is so much more focused on the individual, coming from a really open and loving space, rather than coming from somewhere that's dictating how this should be and this is what you need and this will work for you. It's just, yeah, it's so mind-blowing. So thank you so much. It's been real, my mind is just full of inquiry and question, and thank you very much.
It's true. Yeah, it's, I think one of the most profound shifts is we're shifting from seeing human beings as machines and cars that we optimize and repair to actually living, breathing ecosystems that we tend to and care for moment by moment. That seems to be one of the most important shifts happening right now. Going from just a machine to actually a living, breathing organism. And how do we have economies that are living, breathing ecosystems? With their own innate intelligence. Okay.
I'd say that's the note to end on, Forrest.
All right. Okay. I'll take your word for
It doesn't get much more beautiful than that. So.
Oh. Well, thank you all. Any next call for action? It's 2:30 a.m. here in, I was going to say the Netherlands. The Netherlands.
It's
in
correct.
Amsterdam. Yeah. Thanks for being here, Twinkly Money. Appreciate you staying up in the middle of the night and joining. Yes, I don't have an impulse. I'm sure we'll get together again soon. I'll be in touch with you all on when that'll happen. I'm sure Sarah and I'll have a follow-up, and I'd love to hear from any and all of you in terms of anything that comes up around next steps. If anyone gets an impulse and feels like trusting it, happy to hear from you. So, and any insights or clarity or further things, feel free to share. But yeah, I just want to say what an honor and a privilege to be with you all and be in a shared space like this together. Yeah, I am so grateful and feel very wealthy getting to hang out with you all.
I agree. Thank you, everyone.
Lots of love.
Lots of love. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
See you.
Lots of money.
Lots of money.